Hey everybody, it's Gandy. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about high pressure sodium lamps and what makes them tick. I have honestly worked with these things for 10 years now and never done a deep dive on the components and what makes them different. But now that we're sourcing 3 different kinds, I wanted to see the difference and what makes them better, equal, or not. So let's take a look at it and find out as much as we can about this staple for horticultural lighting. So we're going to break down the basic construction. Basically, this outside part is just a glass jacket. Inside here is a vacuum that's drawn out in the factory, and there's a little part where the glass blowing breaks off and they draw the vacuum out. This inside part is called the Arc-Tube. This is the special sauce that makes one lamp better than the other, and it is made from polycrystalline alumina or PCA ceramic. And I actually found out that the cousin to that, the monos alumina ceramic, is actually what makes sapphire glass on watches, which is as hard as steel. This is not as hot. It's got its own unique properties, but a similar compound. And you know, it's aluminum and ceramic, so it's extremely high temperature, low conductivity. It can handle really high heat. And inside of that arc tube is xenon gas, mercury, and sodium. And actually, this is an old lamp. I'll hold it up here. You can see this one is pretty well burnt out, but every HPS lamp has this little tiny blob of material inside the arc tube. That's actually the amalgam of the mercury and sodium that gets excited and puts the stuff into the arc tube once it gets heated up. So in order to fire one of these things, they have connectors on both ends. This is the difference between a double-ended and a single-ended. And the power actually runs through them rather than completing the circuit coming back like it did in single-ended. But that makes these a lot more efficient. So I'm going to hold up the Ushio lamp, because it's the best in the business. And you know, I was taking this deep dive to see what makes them different. I'm testing them all. I'll have that information, but I'll get to the other components first. So basically, there's these little stainless steel or nickel wires that hold the lamps or the arc tube in place inside of the jacket, and that can differ from fixture to fixture. So that's one different manufacturing component. Subtle difference, but the primary difference between that and a Ushio lamp is this ignition coil. It's as best as I can frame it. There's actually not a lot of good terminology on this, but what this little thing does is it handles the high voltage ignition that comes in to actually start the reaction in the arc tube, get the plasma going. And at first, there's actually this little wire vein that runs down the arc tube that has another little loop at the end. So what that does is it takes in this high voltage pulse from the ballast and distributes it all the way down the arc tube and excites the xenon gas. So that's why you see it first flashes blue when you turn on an HPS. And then the next gas to get excited is the mercury vapor. And then the next gas to get excited is the sodium vapor. And the mercury vapor would be another shade of blue, that kind of purplish blue, the next stage. And then the sodium gas, when it heats up, is that bright orange that we all know from high pressure sodium. So the one fundamental difference is this little ignition coil. And this is a lot more robust. It's got a bunch of wraps on it and actually 3 leads that channel not only the ignition voltage down the whole arc tube more efficiently and more effectively, having those coils and more ability to store power to punch it through and get it going, which is going to make it last a lot longer and run more efficiently. But it's also got 3 power leads that run the main voltage through to these T-bars on either end, where the other lamps only have the single lead. So again, it has to split to go through those 3, but it's going to have a lot more connectivity to get down to the next component of an HPS lamp, which is the tungsten electrodes at each end that once the arc is running, the electricity comes here and here and just keeps that arc, that plasma excited running. And I go back to my favorite component that I found out about today. Inside of every high pressure sodium lamp is these little metal tab right there with a little round spot on it. The name of that thing is called the getter. And what it gets is loose gases that are get into the vacuum. It's really hard to maintain a vacuum. So when this thing gets hot, it actually it's got some kind of special metal on it that it will bind to oxygen or any other gas that manages to get into here or escapes from the reaction. And the getter just gets loose ions and helps keep the vacuum a vacuum so that this reaction can go on in peace in the middle. Pretty cool stuff. So I want to take a minute and talk about why recycling these things is critical. As we mentioned, these contain mercury and sodium running at high pressure in there. And actually, HPS lamps that are optimized or enhanced for horticulture actually contain more mercury in them. And mercury is a known neurotoxin, so it's not something you want to just throw in the dumpster or in the landfill so it ends up in a waterway. And it only takes very little amount of mercury to actually make you feel the toxic effects, most notably going crazy, like the Mad Hatter. Mercury is just really bad for you. It bioaccumulates in the environment and not something we want to have let loose. So I would encourage you to reach out with us and relamp and relax so that we can get you new lamps until you decide to go to LED, and then we'll actually help you recycle the old HPS so you can sleep at night. I already pointed out the subtle differences between manufacturers, most notably the igniter. The other key difference between manufacturers, and this is a non-visible thing, is just the Arc-Tube itself. So when I look at this old lamp, don't want to drop one of these. I look at this old lamp and this new lamp. This is old PL Horticulture. This is a brand new one. The Arc-Tubes themselves are actually the special sauce. The jacketing, which is always done by the last manufacturer, the final manufacturer, that can be done by a lot of people, and there can be some variance in the glass itself, in the optical transparency, and the way it affects the spectrum, but most notably the difference is in the Arc-Tube itself. And as far as I know, Ushio has their own Arc-Tubes, and that's what makes them superior overall. We're going to be looking at that in more detail in another video, but it actually must have a little more mercury in it if they claim to have a better veg and better blue to red balance and better performance. But you can get OEM third-party manufactured lamps like this one. Actually contains a Philips or Signify, but still branded under Philips Arc-Tube. And Philips is just a known old name in horticulture, and that quality of that component goes into their own double-ended HPS. However, better sourcing through third-party OEM manufacturers will have those Arc-Tubes in them. And then you can have, where the quality really drops off, and what we don't mess with is just the third-party, overseas Arc-Tubes. And that's where the quality, like I said, just really drops off, and you get lower performance out the gate, lower durability, all that down the line. So that's the fundamental differences between manufacturers. High pressure sodium is actually a combination of mercury vapor and sodium vapor in the same Arc-Tube. So this looks similar to a high pressure sodium, but not the same. So this is the high pressure sodium, and you can see how this can be a combination of this and one of these. And actually, depending on the pressure in the pressure of the Arc-Tube will actually dictate how the mercury vapor emits light. So it's a combination of mercury and sodium vapor to make high pressure sodium. All right, so there you have it. There's the fundamental differences and fundamental components that make up a high pressure sodium double-ended lamp for horticulture. We've acknowledged that these things are still workhorses. They're going to be around for as long as gas burning cars are around, until people commit to LED when they're ready. I've got other videos talking about the value of actually running HPS and getting that heat to the canopy. So while the spectrum is orange and suboptimal and less fun to work under, there's still a lot of value in running these We just encourage you to, if you don't do it through us, do it on your own, recycle them, be good stewards if you are going to continue to run high pressure sodium. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.